Excuse me. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Whitestone Council meeting. I'm just watching the participants list, still going, but I believe that we have all of our councilors online at the moment. See Councillor Joe McEwen, Councillor Beth Gorham Matthews, Councillor Joe Lamb, and Councillor Brian Woods by telephone. And I believe our presenters are here. I see our two presenters from on IceCap, and I see Greg Mason and David from the Georgian Bay Biosphere. And we have a couple of members of staff as well. We have our CAO clerk, Michelle Hendry, our fire chief, Bob Whitman, and our treasurer, Pat Allen. Have I missed anybody? Is there anybody, Madam Clerk, is there anybody else we're expecting?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, our bylaw enforcement officer will be joining us when we speak to a couple of bylaws.
Oh, okay.
And I think possibly our deputy clerk may join in as well, as she was part of the work that was done on one of the bylaws. They will, and our CEMC, Kathy Whitman, will be joining later when we deal with the emergency plan.
All right, thank you. All right, well, we may have some members of the public. Oh, I see there are a couple of others starting to join us. Welcome to all of you. I'm going to call the meeting to order. It is 6:35, and I will start by asking if there is any pecuniary interest to disclose on the part of the councilors. Okay, thank you. Hearing none. So, as usual for this start of the public portion of our meetings, we will play the national anthem. Madam Clerk. Thank you very much. I will now read our Indigenous Land Acknowledgement Statement. The municipality of Whitestone recognizes all of Canada resides on traditional, unceded, and/or treaty lands of the Indigenous people of Turtle Island. We recognize our municipality on the Robinson-Huron Treaty Territory is home to many past, present, and future Indigenous families. This acknowledgement of the land is a declaration of our commitment and collective responsibility to reconcile the past and to honor and value the culture, history, and relationships we have with one another. For those of you who are just joining the meeting at this point, we did have a closed session of council prior to the dinner hour. And so we are already at item 6 in the agenda, which is to approve the agenda for the meeting. Could I get a mover and seconder, please?
I'll move it, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb, seconded by.
I'll second.
I think I heard Councillor McEwen,
Yes.
correct?
Yes, I'm fine. Thank you.
Any discussion? Is there any opposition to this motion? If not, I will declare it carried. Thank you. Now, we do have a few matters arising from the closed session. The first one is to approve the closed session minutes of our regular council meeting on November 15th, 2021. Could I get a mover and seconder for that, please? Councillor Gorham Matthews, thank you. Seconded by.
I'll second Councillor McEwen.
Thank you, Councillor McEwen. Is there any opposition to that motion? All right, thank you. That's carried. Further, we have an item that was discussed and closed involving the renewal of the contract for our municipal bylaw, one of our municipal bylaw enforcement officers, Mr. Paul Rossiter. Could I get a mover and seconder for the following motion, please? That Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby approve the renewal of the agreement with bylaw enforcement officer Paul Rossiter for a further 3 years commencing January 1st, 2022, and that staff be requested to prepare a bylaw in respect of this matter for the January 18th meeting, but I believe we have it later tonight. Do we, am I correct, Madam CAO?
No, the bylaws, this bylaw is not on the agenda for tonight.
Okay, sorry, I apologize. All right, so staff is requested to prepare the bylaw in respect to the matter for January 18th council meeting. Could I get a mover and seconder, please?
I'll move, Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Councillor Woods. Seconded by.
I'll second Councillor McEwen.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Any opposition to this motion? Okay, hearing none, that motion is carried. Sorry about that, I dropped the paper. So I believe that concludes agenda item 6 and brings us to our presentations and delegations. And we have two this evening, both from the Georgian Bay Biosphere Reserve. Now, the first one, our presenters are, I believe, Greg Mason and David Bywater. Have I got that right, gentlemen? If you'd like to turn on your your cameras so we can see you.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's actually just me presenting
Oh, is it?
on the first one, and David is here on behalf of IceCap.
Oh.
If that's all right. And just while
Oh,
I share my
Yes, go ahead, please, and share your screen. That's all right. We'll I'm pleased to welcome you, Greg, and basically the floor is yours. You're going to
Perfect.
talk to us about the Georgian Bay Biosphere.
Yeah,
I'm assuming in general, and then we'll get into the IceCap presentation after this one. Thank you.
that's right. Yeah. Thanks so much for having me here tonight. If it helps to place me as a Mason in the Parry Sound area, I spent the first 4 years of my life in McKellar, where my parents ran the Highlander Gulf gas station before we moved into Parry Sound, where my dad continued as a teacher. Thanks for allowing me to take some time tonight to present generally on the Georgian Bay Minnedogamie Biosphere. Tonight really is around sort of showcasing very broadly what it is that we do, but more about some of the potential partnerships or ways that we can work with area local governments and other groups in the area. And it's kind of coincidence, but good that we have the IceCap as a follow-up example of the kind of work that we're able to do in this broader region. We have changed our name recently in the last year to include the Minnedogamie, which means spirit of the water, as an alternative, an Anishinaabe name for Georgian Bay. And we're happy to do the work of truth and reconciliation in this area and honoring as a UNESCO designation UNDRIP, which is the United Nations Declaration of Rights for Indigenous Peoples. Since 2004, when we were formed in this region, we consider our impact areas for the work of the UNESCO Biosphere to be education, conservation, working on climate change issue as a pending and an important issue, cultural recognition and cultural activities such as the work with Anishinaabe communities, and then sustainable community development in a lot of different ways throughout this region, from the Severn River in the south to the French River, and then inland communities that flow, have waters that flow into Georgian Bay. 2021, as you as municipalities no doubt know, was a bit of a challenging year with COVID, but we as an organization were able to adapt and adjust well, and I think continue to provide very good programs to the region. Some examples of those snapshots include engaging folks in citizen science species observations, to support a number of different projects and enhance our awareness of what species are existing in the area and where we're finding them. Really engaging people online through social media. And one of our key projects in the last year is working with municipalities on some road projects. And in this last year, we were able to help 2 municipalities protect turtle eggs that were nesting on the side of roads in construction zones, and actually be able to incubate those eggs and release 3,800 turtles to the adjacent wetlands. We do a lot of engagement and outreach work. We have a number of webinars that we've held over the last year, from Indigenous youth engagement programs to kids engagement programs to adult programs, all in those themes of conservation, climate, and sustainable communities. And we are quite proud, pardon me, to have employed this past summer 24 staff, which includes our seasonal staff. And right now, even we're at 15 full-time staff in our office in Parry Sound. We do a range of water quality monitoring. I understand that one of our reports for you is on your agenda tonight, in addition to the IceCap work. This organization, this UNESCO designation, really only exists through partnership. It's the activities of all of us together, from municipalities and other local governments to the federal and provincial agencies that work in this area, to other not-for-profits and community groups and volunteers that want to partner on this work, that make it possible. And there's really no project that we do that doesn't have at least one or two partners in there. In fact, we tend not to do work unless there's a partner willing to work with us in this landscape region. And through the years we've been doing this work, we have a number of different partnership models, anywhere from Georgian Bay Biosphere leading an initiative to actually working through memorandums of understanding and or contracts with groups to help them deliver programs, and then even contract delivery, so service delivery, where we're contracted to deliver a discrete product for folks. Primarily, we work with area councils, not-for-profits in the public sector, and there are times within those partnerships where we incorporate and try to work with the private sector, especially on those sustainable community aspects. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking to you about IceCap, because you're going to get a wonderful presentation from Daryl and Forrest to follow. But I will say that the IceCap initiative is a great example of many, many partners coming together to look at this regional need and find a unique way for this region to deliver on this crisis, really, of climate change. An example of a memorandum of partnership is one where we worked with Shawanaga First Nation to design and write a grant with them. They submitted it, and then they turned around and they've hired us to work with them, mentor their staff, manage their staff, and to deliver this program, which is creating a lake sturgeon conservation plan for Eastern Georgian Bay. So it's led by Shawanaga First Nation. They've contracted to us, and the outcome will be increased capacity for Shawanaga First Nation, but also increased capacity to do this important stewardship work of basically locating where we're finding lake sturgeon in the tributaries for Eastern Georgian Bay, and then developing a stewardship and management plan for that. And on the bottom left, just so if you're curious, of the running water in there is about 23 lake sturgeon in one of the sites that we didn't previously know had sturgeon spawning. So, which was a huge success for our staff who had actually yet to see a lake sturgeon before they started this project. As you're aware of some of the contracts that we do with municipalities, we're available for water quality monitoring, invasive species training, forest health education. More recently, we've expanded into road monitoring and design with species at risk in mind, species at risk mapping, habitat mapping, stewardship resource development, in terms of we do a lot of work with septic education and other best practices around our land use practices. And then we've taken on webinars for municipalities and First Nations and brought expertise in and helped run those webinars for folks to do public education. I would say that our organization has grown quite a bit since 2004. In the last number of years, we've had annual income and expenditures around 1.3 to 1.5 million being spent on staff and programming in the local communities that we've mentioned. This income has doubled in the last 5 years. We've had to move our office in the last year. We were finally we moved in December, and we were finally able to access the office in May because of COVID. And importantly, we've been able to diversify our income. So we're not just reliant on grants. We have, as a charitable organization, the ability to access donations and foundation monies, as well as our government grants. And then we do the service delivery, basically a consulting service. And then also we run fundraisers for our organization. We are looking into, as an entity and an organization, to develop a consulting social enterprise, which can more formally incorporate some of the activities of a consulting organization, expand our staff skill set, and formalize what we're able to offer to communities in this area. And I look forward to, in the coming sort of 6 to 8 months, being able to meet with your staff around some of your municipal needs and opportunities, and to see how we as an organization and a community and region can build a consulting group that can support the needs of this area. The revenue from that social enterprise will in turn be returned to the charity that is Georgian Bay Biosphere to support the community activities the charitable purposes of our entity in the coming years. It's another way of diversifying our income source for this entity. So with you, I'm not looking for answers to this tonight, but I do welcome the opportunity for you to share with us as an organization what your council's needs are, to let us know how we as a charitable entity can be of service to you as a municipality, to let us understand what your partnerships might look like with us. How would you like to work with us, and what are some of your goals as a municipality so we can help and better work with you, and to let us know how your community would like to be involved with the Georgian Bay Minnedoh-Gami Biosphere now and into the future to help us shape our plans. So thank you so much for this time, and I'm happy to take questions, and or feel free to reach out to either our executive director, Rebecca Pollock, or myself at any time, or really any of our staff who are more than happy to answer your questions. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Greg. Maybe at this point we should pause and see if there are any questions from our council concerning concerning Greg's presentation.
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead,
Councillor.
Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, thanks, Greg, and thank you for your presentation and coming out. Just a general question. What are your activities vis-a-vis septic systems and whatever? Obviously, we have North Bay Mattawa who kind of oversee all this, but this is of particular interest to me that you've got aging septic systems that many may need at least examination and action. So if we were to, I'll say employ you, but that's probably the wrong word, set up a contract for you, is there work you do, or what work do you do in the area of septic inspections, etc.? Anything? Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. At this point, we don't engage in septic inspection, as you mentioned. That's under the purview of either building departments and or the North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority, depending on where you are in this region. So the work that we've done working with municipalities primarily is around education and outreach and policy development. So right now we're working with the Township of the Archipelago to review what is possible and feasible for them really around a septic reinspection program and what that might look like for them as a municipality, in addition to that education and outreach component. And that includes anything from, we hosted webinars with the Township of the Archipelago for the region, actually, that we shared that out with the region at their request and permission. And then we also worked to develop education materials. So different materials that were sent out to their ratepayers, and we developed those background materials and did the research on that. So it's really in that side of things that we've been active on septics.
Thank you.
Thanks. Other questions or comments? Councilor McEwen.
Yeah, Greg, thanks for coming out this evening. Appreciate it. Greg, as you're aware, we do a small contract with you, which is the benthic monitoring. And we have folks doing testing in the lakes for water quality to a certain extent. The work you would do with us and for us, it's on like individual contracts, I'm assuming, for any individual or specific issue in monitoring and design of some parts of our system. There's no overall package type thing that you would ask us to enter into to be involved in a whole lot of activities.
I'm going to confess that the sound didn't come through super clearly for me anyway. So if you could reiterate, I'm not.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I didn't catch all of that.
Do you hear me better now?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I guess I was just back a little bit. We do engage in benthic monitoring, and we have folks out there doing water quality testing. And I'm wondering about other monitoring programs. I guess the services you offer are on an individual sort of mini contract basis. Is that correct?
Okay, thanks. We have different relationships with different municipalities depending on their needs. Probably the most comprehensive one that we have developed is a partnership arrangement with the Township of the Archipelago, in that partnership, we've been over the years have reviewed their water quality monitoring program and worked with both their staff and their ratepayers to then go and deliver that, and then compiling on an annual basis state of environmental reports for them. So that would be something that we could consider. And really it's around having the municipality define its needs and outlining that to us, or really to anybody, to see how best to fill that. And we'd be happy to sit down and discuss that with you in some kind of meeting or venue to determine what your needs are and whether indeed we're best suited to help you with that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we are in contact with you through a couple of different venues, so I'm sure we'll be looking for your assistance as time goes. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gorham Matthews.
Greg, thanks for being here tonight. Yes, I just wanted to point out that last year, or I guess this year, we did have the partnership with the Biosphere for our invasive species program, and that was really well done. The support that we had in terms of social media content and program development in terms of fact sheets for our ratepayers and stuff and the Zoom webinars were really well done. And this year we're looking at different things through our environmental stewardship program in terms of working on a butterfly garden and different things like that. So I think we're in the process of solidifying what we've had a good relationship in the past and working in the future as well. So thanks for being here tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Any questions or? Well, perhaps I can just ask one, Greg. Some years ago, I recall that there was someone actually attached to the museum, I think, on Tower Hill, who was a reptile specialist and was operating under a grant. And at the time, they were trying to get people to to report sightings of particularly reptiles, and particularly the ones that are endangered or threatened, and she did come around and do presentations to various groups. Had a rattlesnake in a cage and a few things like that. Does your group do anything like that? Is there still, I guess my question really is there still somebody in the area who wants to know when we see a hognose snake or a Blanding's turtle or a?
Yeah, for sure. We have, I suspect, depending on how long ago that was, I suspect it was Glenda Clayton, and it may have been an earlier iteration of our species at risk program at the Georgian Bay Biosphere. And indeed, we still are looking for those reports, and I'll have our office send you information about the iNaturalist program. As with so many things, this has gone online, so you have the ability. And thanks to David who's shared it within the chat, is a link to the iNaturalist project, and that allows you to. It's actually a really great digital forum that allows you to have the Georgian Bay Biosphere as a project, so that we're able to access what species are posted. but it's a good learning tool for adults and kids alike. So if you find that any species, including snakes or turtles or species at risk, that you don't even know what it is, you can take a picture, and often the online audience within iNaturalist will be able to help you identify it. And all of that sort of collectively pools our knowledge about the biodiversity in the area. And yes, we are keen to know specifically around species at risk where these species are throughout the region, but any species, and that is available. And in terms of presentations and outreach, we would be keen to continue that outreach, and we have a number of programs that kind of fit the bill with that. Sometimes it's working with public works departments around training them around how to move species at risk off the road, or how to work in species at risk habitat. There's a lot that can be done in that regard, and we'd be happy to touch base with you.
Great. Thank you for that answer. Okay, so are there any other questions or comments that anyone would like to make? Okay, if not, perhaps what we can do, and I hope, Greg, that you'll, and David, that you'll be able to continue with this part in case some questions come up further that you can answer afterwards. But maybe we could go to our second presentation. Our presenters tonight are Daryl Moffat and Forrest Pengra. And I see they are online. And I recognize Forrest. He's often the host of calls that we do that involve the town of Parry Sound. So anyway, gentlemen, thank you very much for coming tonight, and look forward to what you have to tell us about ICECAP, the Integrated Community Energy and Climate Action Plans Program.
Mr. Mayor, I'm just going to ask a question. Forrest, is it you that's going to co-host, or is it Daryl?
Forrest.
Yeah, I'll share my screen.
Okay. All right. You are now co-host.
All right. Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Comrie. To the rest of council, my name is Daryl Moffat, and I'm here with, as Mayor Comrie mentioned, Forrest Pengra, as well as David Bywater, who is another ICECAP team member. We'd like to thank the municipality of Whitestone to allow the members from the Integrated Community Energy and Climate Action Plans, or we call it as ICECAP Partnership, to attend your recent Environmental Stewardship Committee, where we spoke about the ICECAP nuts and bolts. And tonight we are here to present ICECAP to the full council. If you want to, Forrest is going to, if you could flip the slide, please. Thank you. Our presentation is in your council package, but both Forrest and I will speak to a few what we consider to be the important points on the slides and take any questions you have. For frame of reference, ICECAP kicked off in February of 2019, but it did not include all the potential members of the West Parry Sound region. Potential members included both municipalities and First Nations that would come together as a partnership to work in a collaborative and more cost-effective approach to energy management and the reduction of greenhouse gases. Since 2019, member representatives have spoken about finishing the puzzle, and tonight we are here to hopefully finish the ICECAP puzzle within the municipal sector by having Whitestone pass the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Partners in Climate Protection, or PCP, resolution, as well as pass a resolution to join ICECAP. Noted here on the slide, you can see what our objectives are: encourage the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, improve energy efficiency, reduce the use of fossil fuels, and adapt to a changing climate by building greater resilience. Forrest, if you could, thank you. By joining ICECAP, you'll be further demonstrating environmental leadership to your residents and the region as a whole. Benefits to joining ICECAP include a voting member at the table, some cost sharing and cost effectiveness. Also, establishing your energy baseline and projections. We also look for eligibility for municipal grants. I'm going to turn it over to Forrest, who will take us through the next set of slides.
Hey, Daryl. Good evening. For those who don't know me, I'm Forrest Pengra. I'm with the town of Parry Sound. I oversee our climate action portfolio, among many other things. Climate change has grown substantially in how municipalities view and really occupy that space, and the obligations that municipalities really are expected from the general public, specifically in regard to the Partners for Climate Protection Program. And as I understand it, may not be within your council agenda tonight, but we'll provide a bit of a background to the program itself. And so the program itself is called the Partners for Climate Protection Program, and it is managed in large part by the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. And it is from an information management standpoint, all of the information is vetted through another organization called ICLEI, and they are another climate change group. The long and the short of it is it's a 5 milestone framework, and the 5 milestone framework is intended to, the long and the short of it is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Now, one can't simply just wave a magic wand as municipal government and all of a sudden, decrease your GHGs by 30%. And so the FCM put together this 5 milestone framework, starting with creating a baseline of inventory for all energy uses, including fossil fuels, electricity, waste, and the like, for both community and corporate emissions. Then the second milestone is to set reduction targets as they relate to those baseline inventories. And following that, to develop a plan to reach those reduction targets. And milestone 4 then is to implement that action plan, and 5 is ultimately to report and monitor on the progress. So it becomes a bit of a cycle, kind of that you reach the end, then you review and you start all over again. Advance the slide. And so corporate milestone 1, which is really the starting point, it's everyone's starting point, and there's really no fast forwarding through the program. The milestone 1 is taking that baseline emissions inventory, and the baseline in this case for our area would be 2016, and it would look at energy analysis across 5 sectors. It, to members' benefits, meets the provincial reporting requirements for energy emissions for the corporate side. It enhances insights into your energy use. In fact, from the town's perspective, when I went through it, we found some very surprising results, one of which was paying for an account we didn't even know existed, and also identified a gas leak before anyone knew that there was a gas leak. So there's a lot of value to understanding your baselines. Doing this will then provide a bit of an insight into what use might look like if we go forward with business as usual forecasting into 2030, and we'll provide some insights into savings opportunities and cost avoidance. So the corporate milestone 1, when we say corporate versus community, corporate literally means your municipal emissions. Community means the greater community emissions. And so all of the members to date have started with the corporate side. It is the most straightforward because in large part, we have all this information already. And so the baseline emissions data is made up of transportation, buildings, streetlights, solid waste, and then a forecast from that data moving forward, as well as general population statistics. And so transportation, that comes down to general fuel usage, looking at, what are your actual emissions factors. Buildings, they look at say, the building statistics, the amount of electricity or natural gas or propane or fuel oil, streetlights, do you have any? How much energy are they consuming? And then solid waste is probably one of the harder targets, but it's very important to understand how much waste we're producing, and really how changes in management of waste, through waste diversion tactics, can reduce emissions. Again, this is at the corporate perspective. So the big thing is, well, why? And it is to provide a better understanding of the energy that we use and the emissions that are generated from those forms of energy. I would wager your probably largest emissions would be in the transportation sector for fleet, followed by buildings, waste, and then potentially streetlights if you have any. And the graphic on the right really shows just kind of a hypothetical pie chart of what your emissions might look like. And if you look at, there was a report released recently where David summarized all the different municipal emissions, and it was pretty telling how different each municipality truly is. And so this graphic summarizes business as usual. And the truth is, we are using more and more and more energy all the time. Despite many of our technologies becoming more efficient, by and large, we are increasing our emissions. And so if we look at the graphic, the gray line on the bottom says baseline emissions. Those are our emissions as of 2016. If we can continue on with a business as usual scenario, we're forecast to see a 12% increase in emissions by 2030. And to reduce these potential emissions, we really need to take that forward role in assessing what our emissions are and what projects we can do to reduce that. Now, likewise, when we get into the community side, that's a little more difficult to take on, but they're still the same buckets. They're still the same areas, be it transportation, residential, consumer, institutional, industrial, again, solid waste, and a business as usual forecast. And so working through this with the GBB, we were able to gather a lot of community-based data through a carbon capture or a carbon calculator tool that was widely publicized within the region. And that allows users to input how much fuel they use on average, how much they travel on average, known electrical bills, propane, natural gas, so on and so forth, to really provide the general public with a baseline understanding of A, how much do they use, and B, more importantly, how much are they emitting? And this again is part of that 5 milestone framework. And it's imperative to understand these baseline factors prior to setting any sort of targets, because if you don't know what your emissions are, you can't really improve upon them. And then we get into the community baseline. And like the corporate, the likelihood is that your transportation, particularly in a more rural community, will be significantly higher than most other factors. Residential buildings for heating and electrical consumption will also be up there, but by and large, you will see the biggest results within the transportation sector. I would suspect waste is also fairly high. And with that, I pass that over to Daryl.
Thanks, Forrest. And just for a frame of reference in terms of corporate versus community, corporate is about 5%, community is about 95%. So there's a big there's a big focus, as Forrest said, the starting point would be to get your corporate baseline, but the big push is to get the community. So I just want to walk through the community benefits, and as Forrest mentioned, our starting point was the carbon calculator that used to gather the baseline information. We can see on the screen here a couple of the items just to highlight. Community action planning. We've got transportation, waste, and building community action groups that we've created to gather input from residents in order to figure out our way forward, figure out what works best in the community, and getting that input and engagement with them. From a recycling and composting, as a councillor in the township of Seguin, we recently passed a resolution to move forward with a pilot project with Food Cycler, which is basically an indoor food waste recycling, kind of about the size of a bread box. And we've acquired, or will be acquiring, unfortunately, I think their warehouse is in British Columbia, but we'll be acquiring units that we would sell off to our residents so that we can reduce our landfill with respect to food waste. Basically grinds the food down into dirt you can put in your plants. So there's several ways: active transportation, electric vehicle options, and again, looking at the electrical vehicle options, instead of competing for certain of those opportunities, collectively as a group, we would work together to reduce our greenhouse gases and bring those options to the region, as opposed to one over the other. So it's just an area where that we can everyone as a whole benefits. As they say, the rise in the boat, everyone benefits from the rise of the water in most cases. Next slide, Forrest. So in terms of next steps, both Forrest and I mentioned about joining the PCP with a council resolution, and I think there may be something, either if not tonight, it will be hopefully discussed at a future meeting. The second piece of the next steps is to join with a council resolution to become part of IceCap and finish up the puzzle here for the region. As part of that, you would appoint a council representative as well as a staff member to attend. There are basically two, in the event of just conflicts and stuff, but different roles. I have a different role in not only as co-chair, but I have a different role as councillor in Seguin versus my staff complement of Dominic O'Brien, bringing that to the staff level. We have our next meeting is scheduled for February of 2022. Still date to be determined, but basically it would be 3 years roughly from when we started IceCap. So probably the rubber hits the road on this slide. We spoke about this at your environmental stewardship committee, got into some nuts and bolts with your council representatives, but there's two kind of pass forwards. I would say we've got our IceCap, which is being at the table, being a member of the partnership, which would include working through your milestone for corporate milestone 1. The second part is bringing and completing milestones 2 and 3, target setting, create a local climate action plan, and then the climate change adaptation. All that is a second level of work, and it really will be what we've found over the last couple of years is that it really will dictate based on, there's a baseline for certain, for the municipalities, but it really will, engagement and education may be different. So it's not just a plug and play type of thing. Next slide, Forrest. So in terms of, if we were just to, if you compare the dollars on the prior slide to this, what we've determined is that if you were to go it alone and try to complete this, you're looking at something in the neighborhood of $60,000 to $80,000 a year. We think that it's collectively as a group, we're stronger, we're better. We're able to share ideas, we're able to share costs, we're able to look for grant opportunities. and that can be that can benefit everyone. Again, in terms of the initiatives, and ultimately the biggest piece is the community participation and preparedness, that we need, given that we're, that is about 95% of the nut that we're trying to crack here. Next slide. So this was the picture that we took back in February of 2019. Good collection of members, public, First Nations and municipalities, but there are some missing puzzle pieces. We have McDougall, as you can see at the bottom of the screen, is now another one of those puzzle pieces that we've fit in, and we're hopeful that Whitestone will join that and finish the puzzle and have your banner at the bottom of this page. We're happy to take any questions that you or your council may have with respect to this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen. We'll open the floor to questions, first of all, from councillors.
Yeah, I'll go,
Councillor
Councillor
Lamb.
Lamb. Yeah, thank you, and thank you for your presentation. I've been following it here on my computer, so yeah, I don't expect you to have time to fill in the blanks here. I mean, as you say, when the rubber hits the road, I look at the first slide and I say, 8,000 a year, 2,500 to join, and that kind of stuff. That's not too bothersome. But the next slide says $60,000 to $80,000 a year, and I guess I don't understand what's encapsulated in that money, and nor do I need for you to really explain it. But before I would vote on it, I want that expenditure explained in greater detail. So that's just a comment. But again, thank you very much for coming out, and obviously, this type of exercise and this type of committee is very important and lacking. And I'm sure our environmental committee that we started in the last year or so will have more to say on this. So I look forward to that information coming to us. So thank you.
Well, I can address that, Councillor Lamb. That would be basically, if you were to, the 60 to 80 would be as if you had to start this program and do it on your own as your own municipality. So that's that's kind of our frame of reference to say, look, you could jump into the pool with IceCap, become part of the partnership, and work collaboratively in a more cost-effective manner, or your option is to go it alone as a municipality and find your environmental manager and complete all the necessary steps as part of the PCP program.
Okay, thank you.
Hopefully that it wasn't there as a scare tactic. It was just it's a frame of reference to demonstrate the effectiveness of working together collectively as a group.
Well, you make me feel much more comfortable. Thank you.
Just if I may, because I had the same question that Councillor Lamb did. For clarity, if we are looking at joining this program, I guess the question is, what are we going to end up having to put into our budget? Starting in 2022, I'm seeing, well, I saw $2,500 and $8,000, but if that's correct for 2022, then in 2023, 2024, et cetera, what can you forecast what kind of an annual commitment there might be from a municipality of our size? So remember, we're quite a bit smaller than the municipalities you guys come from.
Thank you, Mayor Comrie. I guess certainly if you were, again, there's a couple pieces to that. It depends on what you would like completed. So again, you could just say, look, we would like the corporate milestone 1 done, but you end up sort of you've got a period of time, but you could get caught up on the additional milestone 2 and milestone 3 with in a sense of a combined about a $10,000 commitment. In terms of future, what we've determined is that we have found efficiencies, and we found that the more people into the pie, the more resources that we have available to us. Yes, it comes with some additional work. And what we've done over the last year is just increased it by cost of living allowance in terms of, our requirements. But we do, as part of this, go through our work plan. We sit down around the table and decide what we want to do, and then we budget that out. So we have an ability as a group to determine what we want to do and what it's going to cost for the future. So it's hard to say exactly what it's going to be, in 23 or 24, but we all get to sit around the table, and, there's stuff that we say, look, we can't do this. There may be other competing stuff that's not available. So we can adjust our budget and our work plan, on an annual basis, depending on what the members or the partners would like to see done. But certainly a number of, plus or minus 10,000 would be if you went all in, would be a starting point. Hopefully that addresses your question.
Okay, thank you very much. And sorry to jump in ahead. Other councillors who have questions or comments. I see Councillor Gorham Matthews, who is the head of our Environmental Stewardship Committee.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Comrie, and thank you, Daryl and Forrest, for being here this evening, and David. So we benefited through the Stewardship Committee having a more in-depth presentation than this, just as good as this one, but we certainly had a lot more time to delve into how the other municipalities have benefited from this program and what it would really look like to us. And, the members of our committee are ratepayers, and they are, many of them representing a lot of the lake associations in our area, and they were completely supportive of this. And we actually passed a motion at our committee level that we would like to see council support this, and it's in our consent agenda, the minutes for our I think it was our November 10th meeting. This really falls into line with things that we're going to have to do as a municipality that, at this point, we don't have the resources to do on our own. A lot of this reporting that they're talking about is going to be mandatory, and it's going to be things that we need to do in order to, eventually to secure funding for things and such that we can't do on our own. And I think we need to see the value in following in the footsteps of these other municipalities. And, we have a bit of an advantage coming in a little bit late. Everyone's tested some of these strategies, and, we're going to follow in their footsteps and, be able to, complete some of these tasks a little easier than some of the others. So, I completely support it. And, if you look at, in the big picture, what's happening on the federal government, if you're watching our prime minister and all the emissions that he's promising that we're going to be cutting everywhere, well, that has to come from everyone, not just on a federal level or provincial level. They're going to be expecting this on a municipal level as well. And we need to be in a position to meet those requirements. So I'm not sure when we have, or we will be discussing a resolution on this, but it certainly has the committee and my support.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Sorry, I saw Forrest had his hand up. Did you want to respond?
Yeah, I just, through you, Mayor Comrie, I just wanted to kind of build upon what Councillor Gorham was saying. And you said something about whether or not you wanted to go at it alone. And I started out doing all this alone at the town. And it became incredibly clear that the value is with the greater area. And, the idea was simply that we are very similar to municipalities, but we're also very different. And, what good is a plan if it's, it's kind of a microcosm of our region? That the whole idea was to take all of the findings from, the individual municipalities and the First Nations, and take information from these community special interest groups and start to really formulate a truly meaningful regional plan, a plan that looks at, say, the rural municipalities' dependency upon transportation. Well, I'm sure there are things that we can do to reduce our targets collaboratively, and not reinvent the wheel while we're doing it 7 different times. And so I would argue that I wouldn't want to go it alone. And having started down that road, I would argue that even louder, that we really are stronger together in this, above and beyond being like far more financially efficient. So.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McEwen.
Yeah, Forrest, I guess it was there, in determining Whitestone's needs, I'd say we're probably in somewhat favorable position now because you folks have been working on this now for some time. And our community milestone #1, I guess that's where you can come in with some really good advice for us on what to and what not to get into, which could be effective for us out here in more rural cottage country and such. We do have a landfill. We certainly do have some street lights. We do have, some of the other targetable products. So I guess my question is, you would be assisting in Whitestone's determination of our needs, and then thus the cost would come following that.
In regard to the group or the in determining your needs, basically from your community or corporate emissions profiles, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I'm just thinking of the community needs. Like, where do you start? I guess that's where you were faced with that some time ago. And you talk about recycling, for instance. That's one that maybe we could do something fairly easily with. I don't know. You could tell us yay or nay, but that's where your expertise would come in, and presumably our Whitestone milestone costs would be kind of reflected as being modest to start with, and we could look at to getting into things gradually with your expertise. Is that basically what you're offering us?
I think that there's a lot of expertise coming from all over the place. And in some cases, that's the GBB support staff. In fact, they've been fantastic through this, both David and Isabel. But I really think the true value, and it might come down to, true reduction measures, collaboration, but I find that the collaborative, the IceCap proper collaborative, the real value of it is in talking about the various initiatives that each individual might be working toward and trying to figure out, what are the pitfalls, what works, what doesn't work. Hey, do you know about this funding opportunity for energy efficiency projects to replace streetlights or whatever it might be? Absolutely, as part of the goal setting, you would look at baselines and a desired state to reduce your emissions by X, or how to start to shift our frame of mind around fuel switching, for instance. And so these are the various types of initiatives that could come up around the table, or even in your interactions with the GBB staff directly. There's really no end to the true specific recommendations.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I've read several of the minutes and a lot of information that's come out of IceCap and from the different municipalities, and it's very interesting to see the differences from community to community in some respects of what programs they've gotten into. So it's very interesting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I haven't heard from Councillor Woods. Did you have any questions or comments,
ju-
Council?
Just a comment, Mr. Mayor. Thanks. I'd just like to thank everybody that put this package together, and there's a lot of good information in here, a lot for us to think about, and some goals I guess we should be looking at. I'd just like to thank you for your time and showing up today and giving us all this good information. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you. I note that we don't have many members of the public with us tonight, but we do have with us a member of the Environmental Stewardship Committee, Ian Crawford, and Ian had signaled to me that he, if he asked if he could make a comment about this, and so Ian, if you want to turn your mic and or your camera on, and
Thank you
there we are.
very much, Mayor Comrie. I just have a couple of quick comments. First, to thank Daryl and Forrest for their presentations. I'm speaking not on behalf of the Environmental Stewardship Committee. The committee, I'm a resident on Captain Estates Road, and climate change is so important to our municipality that I can't see any logic behind not supporting this initiative. I really want to encourage council to pass both resolutions. And I think of the milestones, developing a local action plan. And the first things that strike me are the expansion of the nursing station and the expansion, whether it happens of the municipal office. Those are opportunities to say, let's make these expansions net zero. And there undoubtedly will be all sorts of funding available for that kind of activity, but it'll have a huge long-term impact and savings for the municipality. Maybe not 5 years from now, but certainly 10 years from now. If you don't spend now, we'll pay later. And I can't support this initiative enough, and I hope the councillors will hear my plea. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ian. Are there any final comments or questions? Well, if not, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of our presenters this evening for sharing this information with us, and for putting it together in the first place. And it's been very informative and very helpful. Thank you. We do have a number of other things on the agenda, so I think we're going to keep going. But again, I appreciate your taking time to inform us tonight.
Thank you, Mayor, for your time, and councils as well. Have a nice evening.
Thank you very much.
All right. So we do have just a couple of possible motions to follow from the presentations and delegations. The first one, I'll read it to you and see if you can see if we can get a mover and seconder. 7.1, that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone hereby receives the presentation from Greg Mason of the Georgian Bay Biosphere Reserve for information, and thanks him for attending the council meeting. Could I get a mover and seconder?
I'll move it,
I'll move,
Councillor
Councillor.
Lamb.
Yeah, I heard Councillor Lamb, and the seconder was,
Councillor Woods, I'll second
Councillor
that,
Woods?
Mr. Mayor.
okay, thank you. I thought that's what it sounded. Any discussion? Any opposition? I trust not. Thank you. And then I have a further motion that I'll read to you, and we'll see if we can get a mover and seconder. 7.2, that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby receive the presentation from Daryl Moffat and Forrest Pengra. And I guess we should include David as well. IceCap co-chairs the invitation for Whitestone to join the Integrated Community Energy and Climate Action Program for information, and thank the presenters for attending the council meeting. And then it goes on to saying that council hereby supports the Whitestone Environmental Stewardship Committee's recommendation as per their November 17th, 2021 minutes of the committee, which you will see in a minute in item 10.1.3 of the agenda. To reconsider membership in IceCap, and that council approves membership in IceCap. Is there someone who would like to move that motion, please?
I'll make the motion.
Councillor Gorham Matthews,
I'll
Yes, sir.
second Councilor McEwen.
seconded by Councillor McEwen. Is there any discussion?
Mayor Comrie, this is Michelle Henry.
Yes.
That the second part of the resolution should read the November 10th minutes, not the November 17th minutes. Just a
Oh.
minor correction. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that note.
So the monies, excuse me, yeah, Councillor Lamb,
Go ahead, Councillor Lamb.
the monies that are being approved by this motion are what again? Please review.
Well, my understanding is first of all two things. I think this is a motion of intent, and we would be including these numbers in the budget. But the answer, when I asked the question of what would go into the budget for 2022, I believe that I got confirmation that it would we're basically talking about $2,500 as a administrative fee, if you like, to join, and probably about $8,000 in addition to that of what would likely be a lot of which would be kind of data collection work that would be involved in that first phase. So I'm guessing if we approve this tonight, what I would expect to see as a budget item would be somewhere in the $10,500 range, something like that. Now, Councillor Gorham Matthews, please correct me if that's not your understanding, but that.
Yes, so there is an annual fee, which is the $2,275.
Yeah.
And then the amount that you would pay per year would depend on what you set your goals for that year and how many of the milestones you wanted to achieve at one time. So they broke it down here in this presentation that in order to reach milestone 1, they estimate it would take about $8,000. And this is with a lot of support from Georgian Bay Biosphere. I will add. They will come to the office. They will help our staff go through our records and our inventory of our assets and what it costs to run everything. This is with tremendous support on their part to help us reach these milestones. So that's really what you're paying for. And for what they had mentioned in the last presentation that we saw is a lot of the other members, they're paying around $14,000 to $15,000 a year, no more than that. And most of those groups are going a little bit faster. They're already on milestone 2 or 3. So this 8,000 would get us through the first one. So that's a conservative number. And we did put this in the budget. We are assuming that this was going to come out of the Whitestone Environmental Stewardship Committee budget. So at our last meeting in December, we actually had a discussion on this on our budget, and we have included money for this program, hoping that council would approve it.
Okay, does that answer your question?
Well, kind of. You know, I, to be honest, I hadn't read the second part of the motion. I really thought, you know, that this would be kicked over to our, you know, January and our budget and that kind of thing, as opposed to approving it tonight. And again, I don't have a big problem. I'll support it. You know, I have questions like, you know, the 25, it's 20, not 22. I read it as $2,575
Yeah.
as an administration fee. Is that a set fee for everyone, or is that saying, well, Whitestone, you know, you're 1/6 the side of Perry Sound, so Perry Sound's paying 12 grand for their administration fee? Where do we sit in that sort of thing? If I'd known we were, you know, and it's not really the amount, but I think we're probably the smallest of all the group, and I think we should join. If I'd known we were passing this, I'd ask that question. But is this a standard fee for everyone, or is this a Whitestone derived fee? I realize number 2, which is the 8,000, will be determined by, you know, the work that we do, you know, within our community. So I don't have a big issue with that. But can someone tell me on the administration fee?
Councillor Gore Matthews, go ahead.
Yes, it's a set fee for everyone. And the reasoning for that is that everyone receives the same amount of support to reach their milestones. There's not more work going into it from one person. It's like the planning board. We all pay the same amount into the planning board. It doesn't get broken down into who sends more you know, properties to the planning board to look at. It's a set fee for everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there other questions or comments from councillors? All right, are you ready for the question then, to put this motion? I'll ask, well, I'll ask the CAO clerk to call the roll here. Madam Clerk, are you there? Did we lose her?
I don't see her.
We did. I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh, but yes, we did lose her. All right, I'll tell you what. Is there
Anyone against?
Is there anyone against the motion? Okay, hearing none, I will consider it approved. Since it is at this stage of the game, we're making a commitment that yes, we want to get on with this, but the exact as Councillor Gore Matthews indicated, we will see an item in the budget coming forward on this. So council will have an opportunity to revisit this again.
Mr.
Okay,
Mayor,
yes,
I
Thank
just
you.
wanted to point out that there is a specific, it isn't part of tonight, but there's a specific resolution that Georgian Bay Biosphere has prepared that all the municipalities pass. Perhaps that can be on the January agenda. It's just specific wording that we have to use that will enable us to be eligible for certain grants and applications. And that will indicate that we're part of the ICE-CAP
Yeah.
and the climate
Okay.
change group.
yes, thank you. I did see that, and but I don't have it tonight, and I'm assuming that we will follow up with this. And I see that our CAO clerk has rejoined us. So
Thank you. We lost connection at the office here, so I had to do hotspot.
okay, I gathered something like that had happened. Well, for your information, Michelle, what we've just done is we have approved the motion at planning, sorry, at 7 point, what was it, 2? So you didn't miss too much.
Just for clarification, Mr. Mayor, so does that, as someone said, does that show intent, or are we signing up for ICE-CAP as of January 1st or holding for budget discussions?
Well, I mean, I think the Councillor Gorham Matthews, while you were just before you came back on, was saying that there is a resolution that we need to pass to formally participate in ICE-CAP. So I guess that will come forward in January at the January meeting.
Okay, all right, that we will make sure that that happens in January. Thank you.
All right. The next item on our agenda is an update to our fees and services bylaw. And our notice bylaw gives notice of this and says that we would have a public meeting. So I need a motion, I need a mover and seconder to move into the public meeting, please.
I'll move it, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb, seconded by, is that Councillor McEwen? Yes. Your audio is not great sometimes, Councillor McEwen, but I guess there's not much we can do about that. I think that's a bandwidth problem. All right, so if there is no objection to this motion, then we will move into a public meeting at 7:54 p.m. And public meeting has its own little set of procedures associated with it. So again, I am required to introduce the members of council and staff who are present with us. We have I'm just going down my participant list here. We have myself, Mayor George Comrie, our CAO clerk, Michelle Hendry, Councillor Joe Lamb, Councillor Brian Woods, Councillor Beth Gorham Matthews, Councillor Joe McEwen. And we have our fire chief, Bob Whitman, and our treasurer, Pat Allen. We have Ian Crawford with us, and we have somebody on the phone at 416-230-5142. And I wonder if that person could identify himself or herself.
I believe it's Scott Nash, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, I
Yeah,
thought I
I was
recognized that
checking.
number. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it's Scott Nash.
We have you, Scott. Very good.
Thank you.
Thanks. I should recognize your number by now. All right. We do take attendance, by the way, for public meetings. As you know, if we were meeting in person, we would be circulating a list. So once again, does anyone have any pecuniary interest they wish to declare on the matter of the fees and services bylaw? Okay, I'm going to say none declared. Next, I've taken the roll call. I will ask that all comments be addressed through me, and I will ask a person making comments to state their name before they speak. I guess the next thing I would do is ask our clerk if there has been any correspondence received about this item since the notice was given.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. None received.
Would you like to comment on the bylaw or the changes to the bylaw?
Yes, I can do that, Mr. Mayor. This, the memo you see before you is the exact same memo that council saw approximately 6 weeks ago. And it was really an overview of the fact that we had a bylaw in 2020. And the intent is to review a fees and charges bylaw annually, which council did. And the recommendations for the schedules, many are housekeeping in nature. For instance, the facility rentals, we neglected to note that Agricultural Society meetings also were exempt from fees. We made a few changes to landfill rates and fees. There was some planning fees that we added in. No changes to Schedule D or E, which is building department and road name signs and 911 signs. There were some legislative requirements, changes required for cemetery rates and fees. And we also indicated that other than the normal dog tag bylaw, which is Schedule H, we would include a $50 lifetime dog tag fee. So those are the recommended changes. Nothing has changed since the memo. Council saw the original memo. And of course, the bylaws will be before council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. We can now take questions and comments from anybody on the call, councillors or members of the public. If you please.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. Councillor
Councillor Lamb, go ahead.
Yeah. Michelle, I'm having some difficulty when I was reading it today. And again, I have to skip down to the actual bylaw. So if you look at page 93 of the agenda, which is Schedule D of the bylaw, it's the building department rates and fees. And maybe it's me, but I just find it very confusing because you're talking, for instance, about, the rate will be levied against each $1,000 of construction value, et cetera, et cetera. But then when you get down to the things, it says, like a garage or a storage or boathouse, it says $35. But then beside it, it says per square foot. And that can't be, or porches or carports or sun decks or balconies, $25. And then beside it, it says per square foot. I know that isn't what we want. If I put a 10 by 10 building up, for instance, an accessory building, that's 100 square feet. We're not going to pay, 35 times 100. So I just find that very confusing. Am I misreading it? I know that isn't what we charge, but why would we put in, I don't know, help me out.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, I don't think I can help you out. I'm sorry. This isn't a fee schedule that I work with on a daily basis. And I do recall when these fees were updated fees in 2020. And I recall that our CBO at the time was before council and explained these fees and the unit, how it is calculated. So I'm, all I can do is assume that this is correct. I did go to our interim CBO and asked if there was anything that needed improvement or clarification on this schedule, and there was an indication of no. So I'm sorry, I'm not a good person to ask in regard to this particular fee schedule.
But my problem with it is, of course, if I read I go down there and I read a solarium, for instance, in a sunroom. So I put a solarium up, or I put a bunkie up. It's there too. It says $50, and the next line says right across from it per square foot. So surely to God, we're not charging $50 a square foot for a bunkie for a building permit.
Well,
I know we're not. I'm sorry.
No, I'm going to ask the CIO a question. Can you confirm that this Schedule D has not changed since the one that we approved? Is it identical to the one that was approved earlier in the year? Schedule D, I'm talking about.
Yes, it's absolutely identical except for one item, which has nothing to do with the fees or the unit. and that is under road damage deposit. In the 2020 schedule, it said to be determined. And that's simply because at the time, there was no policy. And since then, a policy was developed. And that's why you see policy as approved by council, a resolution 2021-035. So technically there is a minor change, but it has nothing to do with the fees or the units. So that's
Well,
my
The
answer.
reason that I asked the question is that I raised this issue before that Councillor Lamb is raising. And I could almost swear that we had changed the schedule to remove that because it's a flat fee. And it's not per square foot. And I agree with him, frankly, that that's confusing. So I don't know. Well,
Let's
so,
fix it.
not in every case it isn't, but in some case, not in some cases there are square foot charges. But I just I don't understand. I was concerned that perhaps we had reverted to an earlier version of this schedule by accident somehow.
Well, we just need to review it, fix it, and make sure it's right. I won't be approving it based on what this says. Because it's, as you say, it's very confusing, and I never noticed it. I mean, we may have indeed passed it in 2020, but shame on all of us for not catching it back then, or as you say, maybe it was caught and changed, and this one's wrong. I don't know, but something's not right in Schedule D. That's my point. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I do recall questioning our CBO at the time, and there was some justification for it, but I can certainly sympathize with Councillor Lamb that when you read it, it says per square foot. And if it's per square foot based on the fee, it's just not realistic.
All right, folks. Well, look, this is it. We're in the public meeting, and this is our opportunity to raise issues. So that's clearly there is an issue there. And perhaps when we get out of committee of the whole, we have a motion instead of approving it. We'll have to defer it. But might as well take advantage of the opportunity. There are other comments about the fees, any of the fees. Are there any other things that you want to question or comment on? Well, I'm not hearing anything. Is there any other? I'll ask one more time. If the answer is no, then I guess the next thing for us to do would be to have a motion to reconvene to the regular meeting, regular session.
I'll move it,
I'll make
Councillor Lamb.
I heard Councillor Lamb, seconded by Councillor Gorham Matthews, was it? Did you second? Yes. Okay. All right. I'm assuming there is no opposition to this motion. We are now at 8:06 p.m. So matters arising from the public meeting, there isn't one yet, although you will see that the fees bylaw comes up under bylaws. So when we get to that, we will deal with it. That takes us to our consent agenda. And in the consent agenda, sorry, I'm just flipping past all these. Whoops. No, I'm into bylaws. Okay, sorry about that. So in the consent agenda this month, we have quite a few items. We have our regular meeting minutes from November 15th. We have 3 sets of minutes from the Environmental Stewardship Committee. Thank you, Madam Chair. October 27th, November 10th, November 17th. You can see these folks have been hard at work. We have minutes of the library board, the Library and Technology Center board minutes, and the of October 18th, and the cemetery board minutes of November 30th. And then we have 3 sets of recreation committee minutes. July 27th, which you have seen previously in draft form. And then October 20th and November 24th. And the 24th ones are still in draft, but they're there just to let you know that there are and have been a bunch of things that have activities that have resumed and are going on. So, and then there is the list of unfinished business on page 5. So could I get a mover and seconder for the consent agenda, please?
I'll move, Councillor McEwen.
Thank you, Councillor McEwen, seconded by
I'll second.
Councillor Gorham Matthews. Is there anything you would like to pull off this consent agenda for discussion?
I would, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Could we have a discussion on 10.14, the pertaining to the minutes for the stewardship committee on November 17th?
Yes, you could.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
my comments on as I look at the motion, at the end, we've got all these minutes and drafts and all this sort of thing.
Yeah.
Then at the end, it says, now therefore let it be resolved that the council of the municipality of Whitestone does hereby receive and or approve the items contained in the consent agenda dated December 13th, 2021. All the items contained in all these minutes and whatever, action items, costs, programs, whatever, they have to form part of the budget process, or they have to come back to us. I think we're receiving them and we're approving those, but I don't think approving the items contained within is the right proper language. I think
Okay.
we're
Yeah,
receiving
I understand what you mean. The ones that would be approved would be the council minutes for November 15th, because we are required to approve those.
yeah.
I
but
don't
it-
think that
yeah.
we approve, I'll ask the clerk to comment, I guess, but I don't think we approve the minutes of the other boards or committees.
It says items.
We
contained,
receive them for
proper.
information. Is that your understanding, Michelle, or am I missing something here?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, you're correct. I mean, normally we don't have this many minutes, so you're right. We can separate that out and write it a little bit differently next time. So what we do is we approve the council minutes, as you noted, we're required to, and then we receive the minutes from the committees and the boards. And if there are recommendations in there that we need to consider for budget purposes at a later time, then that's part of the process.
Well,
So we can just change it to say,
yeah,
approve the council minutes and receive the other minutes, right?
yeah.
That makes sense.
What I was going to suggest was that we reword the motion to read as follows. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the council of the municipality of Whitestone does hereby receive the items contained in the consent agenda dated December 3rd and approve the council meeting minutes of
10.11.
November 15th. I'll just spell it out. Council meeting minutes of, and it's November 15th,
Thank you.
2021. All right, so can I assume that the mover and seconder are okay with that change?
Yes.
All right, can we now put the question then? Is anyone opposed to this motion as amended? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to say it's approved. And matters, no matters arising from the consent agenda. Accounts payable.
No, I think
Mr. Mayor.
Counselor Goran
Yes.
Matthews wanted to talk about one.
Oh, Councillor Goran Matthews,
Yes.
I apologize. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Getting ahead of myself here. Sorry. You did ask to discuss item. Let's see.
Yeah,
It was
10.14.
10.1.4. Go ahead, please.
Sure. So I just wanted to have a very quick discussion because I know we still have a lot ahead of us. And, you know, it kind of ties into what Councillor Lamb previously brought up during the Georgian Bay Biosphere presentation about septic systems. So our committee has been discussing this item, and we did have Robin Allen from North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority come talk to the committee. So we've been doing a lot of homework on this item, and you know, I just kind of wanted to get a little bit of feedback from the rest of council in terms of what your thoughts are in proceeding with the committee looking at different options in terms of a septic reinspection program or some such type of system in order to ensure that all of our septics are, especially the ones that are on the waterfront, aren't contributing to any water quality issues or the hazardous harmful algae blooms that we've seen on Whitestone Lake. So we've been doing a lot of homework, and we're seriously looking into this. I'm just wondering what council's appetite is at this point, or would you want more information still with regards to Whitestone considering a septic reinspection program? I can say that Seguin has one. I hadn't heard about the archipelago developing one with Georgian Bay Biosphere. McKellar is looking at something. So I'm just wondering what the rest of council's appetite is in terms of the committee proceeding with looking at what our options are towards making sure our septics aren't harming our waterways.
Any comments?
Mr. Mayor, I might just comment a little further to Beth's comments there
Go ahead.
on the committee. I believe we were to, as a committee, do further research prior to the next meeting. I appreciate what Beth's asking, and it's an information thing, but more maybe than getting information from the actual councilors because of all the work that's been done in the background. But there are some interesting scenarios out there for sure. And Robin Allen, she's one resource person, and then we were talking about maybe getting information from contractors and expanding our knowledge base. I'm not sure, Beth, if we can get a whole lot of input directly from councils just yet. Maybe it's for a future meeting.
Yeah, no, I was just, because Councillor Lamb brought it up, I was just checking to see if any of the other councillors had any thoughts or feelings towards this as we're proceeding with getting more information at a committee level.
Well, I'll give a comment. And yeah, I did bring it up. I can, wasn't really prepared to discuss it, but I guess the first thing that hits my mind is obviously it can be an explosive issue, correct?
Yeah.
And so it's a big issue. Am I for it? I am. I think we have to be responsible. But I guess I look at it, Beth, in terms of the whole body of work and the recommendations of the environmental stewardship committee, right? Like we have to look at what the dollar amounts coming out of it are, and this and the programs that are being suggested, and the timing of those projects, right? You can't do everything, I'm sure, as you've discussed in your meetings, you can't do everything in 1 year. You can't say, 2022, let's put in, $400,000 into the budget, being silly, right? But that's how I would look at the septic reinspection thing. I would look at it in terms of is that the primary goal of 2022 of the committee? And if so, what the cost of that would be? And more importantly, or as importantly, how would you approach it? Particularly the people that say, get off my property, you're not coming in here, right? And how, so I would look at that as an education component first, as opposed to let's have inspectors out there starting in the spring, kind of, going around to places and whatever. So I don't know how other people are approaching it. I'd like to know how they're approaching it. But certainly, do I think something needs to be done? Yes. But, do we take it a soft approach first, followed by a harder approach a year or two out? I don't know. But I don't know whether that helps you or not, but.
No, that's very helpful. And that is definitely what we're leaning towards. We're looking at education pieces for the next year and exploring our options and what would be the most palatable way and accepting way within the community to move forward with something. So, I wasn't expecting a yes or no answer tonight, just what council's interest was, whether it was something that you thought was an issue. Because if we go to all the work of recommending and researching something, then, there's no appetite at the council level, then we've done a lot of work for no reason.
See, I'll just make the comment, I haven't I pump my septic system out and all that kind of things. I don't have a problem. I went down to the library and picked up a couple of pucks or something, and can't do it right now, but in the spring, I guess there's some light or something. I want to try and do that. But then I got told this week by someone, save your breath to blow your porridge. It's not worth, even looking at it. It's not authentic. I have no idea, right? Is it not? Not that you need to answer that now, but those are the things we need to clarify, right?
Yes. Okay, that's helpful.
Is there anyone else who would like to comment on this at this point? If not, I will offer just a couple of comments about it. It seems to me the preferred way to maintain a septic system is to make sure that it is periodically pumped out and inspected. And the if it was just installed recently, the inspection probably isn't going to show anything, but the pumping out is still important, because as you perhaps know, if you don't pump them out, the level of solids will rise in the septic tank to the point where the effluent does not stay long enough in the tank for the necessary septic action to take place. As a result, you are in fact pumping the sewage out the back end of the septic tank into the septic bed. So now you've got it up on where it can spread out to the mantle. So it's really important to have them pumped, and the sort of certified pumping pumping guys who pump them are supposed to inspect them, and they are in fact supposed to, because they're licensed by the Ministry of the Environment, they're supposed to report to the Ministry of Environment if there is a defective system, which they can generally tell on site when they pump it. Unfortunately, they don't do that. I have seen situations where one was completely unusable and they still pumped it. They could see that it was broken, damaged. They just turned their eyes and pumped it out and drove away. But what I think is probably the best approach is to and the municipality has the authority to do this. They can say to people, okay, you have to have your septic tank pumped out every so many years and inspected every so many years. And that's a reasonable requirement unless the building is not occupied for a protracted period of time. You might be exempt, but then you would ask for that report to be filed. And there's an upfront cost to doing this because, of course, we would have to go through all of our property files and find the septic tank approvals and see when they were. And some of them go a long way back. And so then you would have to contact owners and say, you're required to file an inspection report within so many years of this notice, and you start rolling. And of course, as you issue new septic permits, new building permits, you've got the septic permits, so you add them to the system. But there's a fair bit of upfront administrative cost, but that way you're treating everybody fairly. Again, you can rely on complaints, but a lot of people will not rat out their neighbors, even though they know their septic system's no good, right? And I think, and I would guess that probably, you could, if you went and inspected all of them, you would find that probably somewhere in between 10 or 20% of them are not compliant. They're not compliant. They're not functioning properly and need to have work done, and I'm talking major work, like a septic tank replaced or a tile field. And of course, the ratepayers are pretty sensitive about or they don't appreciate getting a message that, oh, you got to now go out and spend. Could be $20,000 or $30,000. It could be more if the septic system was originally located somewhere that was okay, that got approval 30 or 40 years ago, but now is too close to water or something and has to be moved to an entirely different location and maybe pumped. So, but I don't know. My inclination would be to start with saying, okay, we're gonna really push as an education program and eventually require people to report, to just make reports and say, okay, every so many years you have to submit evidence that you had it pumped and inspected, and then you can put that into a system and track it and send them reminders until they do it, right?
Mr. Mayor, if I could, you're talking around the whole issue that's been discussed for about 6 hours by committee and from all kinds of sources of information. And we do have stats from Seigman, and we've had some real good information from North Bay Mattawa on when and what requires pumping and age and when to pump and all kinds of stuff that we've got there. So there will be information forthcoming, but the educational part of it is where we're starting off with. So I appreciate what you're saying, but this has been discussed very thoroughly and we've got a lot of information on it.
So basically you're suggesting that we should wait until the committee reports, is that?
Well, we're still in the process of coming forward with a report, yes.
Okay, well, that's fine. I'm happy with that. I wasn't thinking we would solve the problem tonight. I just, anyway. So is there anything for anybody have anything else they want to say on this subject? Okay, if not, we'll carry on. Accounts payable. Mover and seconder, please, that the council of the municipality of Whitestone approve accounts payable in the amount of $138,706.43 and payroll in the amount of $67,320.98. Who will move that?
I'll move, Councilor
Honor.
McEwen.
Yeah, I heard Council McEwen moved and Councillor Gorham Matthews seconded. Is there any discussion about any of these items? Questions or comments? Sorry, I was trying to get them up on the page, but anyway, going once, going twice, any questions or comments? If not, I'll ask our clerk to call the roll, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me. Councillor Gorham Matthews,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor McEwen.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Woods.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion is carried.
Okay, that brings us then to bylaws. The first bylaw was the bylaw that we went into public meeting for to establish fees and charges. Is it the wish of council to defer this item?
Mr. Mayor, if I could say something?
Go ahead, please, Councillor Woods.
As we've been going through the meeting here, I was looking at this again and trying to remember the discussion when Tyler was explaining things to us and how we see the per square foot there. I think I might have it figured out. Run it past everybody here quick. So what Councillor Lamb was saying, a bunkie, say 10 by 10 and $50 per square foot. I think that is for the value of the building, right? So 100 square feet times 50. And then at the top, if you read the rate to be levied against each $1,000 of construction would be $1,450. So you would take the, it would be $5,000, right? $1,000 of each. So 5 times $1,450 plus the base fee, which would bring you out to 200 and change for a building permit. I think that's, unless I'm looking at it completely wrong. But maybe that explains it.
I would suggest that what we do is defer this, and because Tyler's at the next community, we give him a call and find out what it meant and clarify. You might be right.
I don't object to deferring it. I thought that is what it is. I think I'm not 100% sure, but that's the way I'm reading it.
So there's
there, but I think that's what it was.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, but so what you're saying is the $25 and the $35 is a flat fee, and then you pay $1,450 on top of that per $1,000 of construction value.
But where does the square, I still don't see where the square footage factors in. What's?
Oh, okay, Mr. Mayor, I'll try this quick.
Is it
say
in
you were
one of the
building a 10
notes?
by 10. No, I'm just trying to remember from the discussion that Tyler had with us back then, because I was scratching my head at it too. And I think, so solariums, sunrooms, and bunkies, for instance, okay, $50 per square foot they have for the unit. That unit, and then if you look at the top of that schedule, it says the rate to be levied against each $1,000 of construction value. So I think that's how would we get to the value of what the building would be, right? So 100 square feet times $50, right? We'd have our value. Divide that by the $1,000 would give you our unit number, right? and that unit number times the 1450 plus the base fee of 140.
Well, you got me confused. I don't know.
It confused me too when Tyler was talking about it, but I think that's what it was. I'm not 100% sure, but me, what if you think I'm way out to lunch, no problem. That's fine. I mean, we can defer this and get an answer on it, but I think that's what it was.
Okay, well, thank you.
Councilor, what if I could, I think your 140 was for like a construction project, which is like a single story finished. And then the 140 would be replaced by, if you go down the solarium, sunroom, bunkie, it would be $50 plus the whatever per $1,000 based on 1450 square foot. So I think that was an example, actually, that first line up there based on a single story, but it could be a little clearer for sure.
Okay, well, I'm wondering, we don't have a motion on the floor. Can I get a mover and seconder to? I'm going to suggest to defer it, I think, but.
Yeah, I'll move it.
All right, is that a move? You're moving to defer, Councilor Lamb?
I'm moving the motion and then I'll move to defer. Yeah. I'm going to ask to defer it, but I'll move the motion.
Oh, all right, okay.
I think you got to get a mover and a second.
Okay, all right. If you want to do it that way, we can do it that, sure.
Yeah.
So who will second the motion that's to approve the bylaws as they are?
I'll second it, Councilor Woods.
Okay, Councilor Woods. So it's been moved and seconded that we approve the bylaws as the fees and charges bylaw as it is. So.
But we defer it.
Okay, so we need to, if the decision is to defer it, then I still need to, well, I guess I don't.
Rather than.
Yeah, who doesn't agree to is there someone who does not agree to defer it?
Just for clarification on Schedule D.
Yeah. All right, well, that's what I'll put as a note, deferred for clarification. Of Schedule D. Okay, is there anyone not in agreement with deferring it for clarification of Schedule D? Okay, it is deferred. Sorry. I took the wrong box. There we go. 12.2, a bylaw to appoint a chief building official for the municipality of Whitestone. Effective January 1st. So can I get a mover and seconder, please, that bylaw number 54, 2021, being a bylaw to appoint a chief building official for the municipality of Whitestone and to repeal bylaws 31-2018 and 36-2021 be read a first and second time this 13th day of December 2021, and further read a third time, passed and properly signed and sealed this 13th day of December 2021 and numbered bylaw 54, 2021. And I trust everybody realizes that there are we've got two bylaws to repeal. One is the last permanent appointment we had, and then we have one for our interim CBO. So we're actually we're repealing both of those previous appointments. Could I get a mover and seconder for this motion, please?
I'll move it.
Councillor Lamb, thank you. Seconded by
I'll second, Councilor
Councillor
McEwen.
McEwen. Thank you. Any discussion?
Do we not have to put the name of the individual in or no?
Well, the name of the individual is in the bylaw. So,
Oh, okay, okay.
I mean, we could have put it there, I guess, but
No, that's okay. That's okay. I did,
Alright.
okay, that's good.
any other questions or comments? Any opposition to this motion? Okay, hearing none, I'll declare that bylaw approved. Next, we have our waste management bylaw update. And I'd like a mover and seconder, please, that bylaw number 47-2021, being a bylaw for managing the disposal of solid waste and recyclable materials within the municipality of Whitestone, and to repeal bylaw 19-2010, be read a first and second time this 13th day of December 2021, and further read a third time, passed and properly signed and sealed this 13th day of December 2021, and numbered bylaw number 47-2021. Mover and seconder.
I'll move Councillor McEwen.
Thank you, Councillor McEwen. Seconder.
I'll second.
Second, Councillor Gorham Matthews. All right. Any discussion? Is there any opposition to approving this bylaw? All right. 12.4. The dog bylaw. Can I get a mover and seconder, please, that bylaw number 55-2021, being a bylaw for the regulating of dogs within the municipality of Whitestone, and to repeal bylaw number 42-2005, it's the old dog bylaw, be read a first and second time this 13th day of December 2021, and further read a third time, passed and properly signed and sealed this 13th day of December 2021, and numbered bylaw number 50. Whoops. 55-2021. I thought there was a mistake there, but there isn't. Could I get a mover and seconder for this one, please?
I'll move, Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Councillor Woods. Seconded by.
I'll second Councillor McEwen.
Thank you, Councillor McGann. All right, I will ask for discussion, but I'll make a comment first, if I may. Just I did communicate to some of you that I was concerned about one particular item, which was what I consider a serious item, which was the restriction that eliminates it's in the scope section of the bylaw that says that the scope excludes Crown land. And I don't believe that that's either necessary or appropriate. And I would, originally I thought, well, maybe it should go back for further discussion and have an edit, but we spent a fair bit of time on this particular one, and if council were agreeable to just removing that one little bit of red ink from the scope section, I'm not sure if we couldn't just approve it as it is and move on to other things. So I throw that out to you as a suggestion. But anyway, with comments from others.
Yeah, Councillor Lamb.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, when I was part of this committee, as I recall, and might be wrong, we were told, I think by staff, that that, you know, it doesn't apply, can't do things on Crown land. So we moved on to and doing a lot of good work on what was a terribly outdated bylaw. So I think overall it's a good bylaw. All I want to make sure is whatever's right is in there. And I'm not saying you're right or wrong, Mr. Mayor, you're probably right, but staff told us otherwise. So where's the comment? You know, is the bylaw officer on the call? And if so, I would put to the bylaw officer, can you action and charge or do whatever people, not only for this, because it deals with other bylaws, I would think, on Crown land. So that's the question to the bylaw officer.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that because I was looking and I see that he has joined us. So Paul, if you wouldn't mind, Paul Rossiter, if you wouldn't mind speaking up, you can unmute your microphone. I see that our deputy clerk, Judy Mintz, has also joined us. She wasn't on my original list either, but.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I'm here. If you can hear me.
Okay, go ahead, Paul. Thank you, I can.
Yeah, the question from Councillor Lamb was, for me, how do I enforce or can I enforce bylaws on Crown land? I've never been caught in a situation where I've had to do that in the past. And I think in order for me to do that, I think you mentioned it yourself, Mr. Mayor, I have to be appointed or designated by the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry. So it's worth an inquiry. Should we follow through with the bylaw tonight and maybe get further information, additional information or confirmation in itself from the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry? I mean, they did give their legal opinion. Perhaps we could get that from our legal representative, Paul Dre, our prosecutor. Just to confirm.
Okay, you may recall, Paul, that I forwarded to you the correspondence I got from the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry. And basically what it said was, yes, you can enforce municipal, we're talking about enforcing municipal bylaws. Municipal bylaws are enforceable on Crown land so long as they are not in direct contravention of the Public Lands Act or other regulations that the Ministry of Natural Resources might have under that act. If you were to enforce the Public Lands Act, you would need to be designated by you would need to be appointed by the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about enforcing a municipal bylaw. So it would be something like parking or dogs or other or littering or other bylaws that the municipality might have that that are not items that are covered under the Public Lands Act. So I mean, if we go back, I don't mind going back and trying to get clarification, but it's the person who the person that I would ask for clarification that's in the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, and they have told us this because we raised the issue saying we couldn't. It was my understanding too that we could not enforce municipal bylaws in Crown land. And they came back to us and said, oh, yes, you can. And that documentation that I forwarded to you was provided in response to that. So I guess my concern is that, as you might know, that we have quite a bit of Crown land in the municipality, and the majority of our public landings are Crown land and so on. So if someone's, to stay on topic, if someone's dog is misbehaving at a public landing, if we call you, you're going to say, well, sorry, it's Crown land, I can't do anything about it. Too bad. So if he bites people, that's somebody else's problem. And don't call us. And you very well know that the MNR will not enforce on these. I mean, unless they happen to be there already, they're not going to come out in response to a complaint. So I think it would be a serious mistake for us to try to suggest to people, okay, as long as it's Crown land, you can do whatever you want. That's my concern. But anyway, it's up to council. I don't know how you want how if you want to resolve this. I don't know how we would have to get a legal opinion from someone who's an expert in administrative law, probably not the prosecutor in Parry Sound.
Well, from my standpoint, I brought the question up. I just want to make sure it's right. It would make sense to me that if a dog was at a public landing and biting someone, that we should be able to do whatever we do. But similarly, if people have parking infractions or whatever at wherever, Gooseneck Lake Landing or the boat launch, right? We should be able to enforce our bylaws there, I would think. But as I say, we were told otherwise. So how are we going to resolve it? Because it goes beyond just this bylaw, right?
Madam CAO, do you have any suggestion as to what you would?
Well, I'm torn between deferring this bylaw once again with all the hard work that's been done to date. I do recall you and I talked today. I do recall the email, and I couldn't find it, to be honest with you, but I didn't look as thoroughly as I should have. All right, I was able to, where you had the discussions that there was confirmation that we could indeed enforce municipal bylaws on Crown land. I understand that Paul, our bylaw enforcement officer, is somewhat reluctant, but in the whole scheme of things, I'm thinking that this bylaw is solid if we remove that wording on Crown lands. If there is more work to be done to give Paul Rossiter the authority to enforce our bylaws on Crown lands, we can do that. But I'm not sure that it's reason enough to defer this bylaw one more time. That's my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
I agree with Michelle, Mr. Mayor, on that.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Councillor McEwen.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if we were to put included with MNR authority, would that mean anything to us? We'd have to get the authority and make sure we have the authority so that our enforcement people would know what they're allowed to do on Crown land. Still a little bit open-ended, but we have a MNR authority to do things on Crown land under permits in certain locations. Maybe that's something we could look into and not hold it up, but just go with MNR authority as a writer.
Well, I guess the reason that we ended up getting what we did was that we had asked repeatedly some of you may recall that we had a delegation with the Minister of Natural Resources that included this subject back 2 years ago. And at the time, the senior staff of the ministry were puzzled. They didn't seem to think, they didn't understand why we thought we couldn't enforce our bylaws. And they said to us, well, they gave us examples. Michelle may remember this. They gave us examples of other municipalities that said, well, they enforce their bylaws on Crown land. But what I wanted them to do was I wanted them to do something very specific, to delegate some authority to us in writing. And they declined to do that and said, here, we have this policy statement, read it. So I think if we went back to them and said, well, we want you to authorize us to do some specific thing, we would probably, like many other requests that we might make of them, just never get a response. So I guess what I was arguing for was just approving the bylaw without those few extra words that were put into it that related to, in other words, just take the reference to Crown land out of it. I mean, what we can always have a test case, we can, when we find somebody doing something that contravening one of our bylaws, we charge them and see where it goes from there. But that's what I'm suggesting, but it's up to the council. If you want, I think I'm not sure how to word it says this bylaw applies throughout the whole of the municipality. Sorry, I'm reading section 2.1 on page 118 of your handout. It says this bylaw applies throughout the whole of the municipality except Crown land. And that's a pretty blanket exemption. My preference would be to simply take those words out and just say,
Mr. Mayor?
yes.
I don't have a problem with that, and we can pass the bylaw. I mean, I don't want to necessarily hold it up, but I think on the side, because it has implications beyond just the dog bylaw. I mean, Paul Dre is in Perry Sound, does the prosecutions. He's a paralegal, but perhaps we should just ask pass the bylaw, but ask a question of Russell Christie or whatever to say, hey, can we enforce? Just ask them the question. Tell them we want a half-page answer, right? Yes or no. Are we able to, right? I think that's worthy of an expenditure, so that we know, when the bylaw officer knows Crown land all over the place for all our bylaws, right? And if we are, what exactly do we have to do in order to give the bylaw people the authority to do that, right? Because as you say, we have 80-90% of our territory, I think, is Crown land, right?
Yeah.
So
okay,
let's pass it and plus get a legal opinion. And if that legal opinion is we can't, I guess you'll have to go back and amend the dog bylaw.
Okay, well, are there?
I was a seconder on the motion. I'd be willing to drop those 3 words off also. I believe Councillor Lamb moved it and I seconded. Am I correct?
No, I didn't move it. I didn't
Brian
move
Woods. Brian Woods, Councillor Woods moved it.
Mr. Mayor, if I could say something.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, so you're suggesting dropping off except Crown land for 2.1, right?
Yeah.
And then passing it, and then we'll see if we can charge somebody and see if it sticks, kind of thing. And then if it didn't, then we'd have to go back and amend it. If we passed it the way it's written, and I know you and I talked today, and I appreciate the conversation we had. If we passed it the way it was and then went and got a legal opinion on it, couldn't we just come back and then take out except Crown land? The only reason I'm saying is there was a lot of discussion over this bylaw. There was a lot of emails that came in. A lot of people were upset about it being, all encompassing, including Crown land. Would that be a route to go rather than just take it out right now and maybe, fire up a whole group of taxpayers again? Should we just pass it the way it is and then get the legal answer? And if they tell us no, absolutely you can, then we could just come back and amend it and take that out. And then at least we have the legal answer to provide all of the ratepayers that might be upset about us being allowed to enforce things on Crown land.
Well, again, I guess it's going to, that means it's going to come back to council though at some, well, I don't know.
It's not the end of the world.
I mean,
But
at the end of it, sorry, go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
no, I was just
apologize for
gonna say,
interrupting
do you
there.
want it? I mean, I look, whatever council wants to do, I'm willing to defer it. I'm willing to pass it as it is, but only on the understanding that, oh, I mean, I'll only vote for it on the understanding that if we pass it as it is and when we get confirmation that it comes right back and gets cleaned up. So if the public somehow or other believes that there should be no, that dogs should not be subject to any regulation on Crown land, then we're going to have the problem eventually. And I think the bylaw, I mean, I think a lot of that concern was related to hunting and agricultural operations and those kinds of things. And those have been taken out of the requirement to leash, for example. So I don't think there's anything stopping people from using hunting in this bylaw as it is from using hunting dogs or guard dogs either on their own property or any of those other kinds of things that people do in fact use dogs for. So anyway, that's all. Whatever council wishes to do. We can, as I say, we can defer it. We can pass it with the section out, and then I'm still arguing that we should, or I'm still agreeing that we should get a legal opinion. I think we should get to the bottom of this because we need it for other things.
I think we should too.
So
I mean, there's nothing worse than passing a bylaw and then the bylaw officer goes out and does something on Crown land, and he goes into Paul Dre, the prosecutor, and says, here's the charge, go forth. And Paul Dre says, I can't, it's on Crown land, it's not worth the paper it's written on, and what do we do, right? And that applies across a whole series of bylaws, perhaps. So I think it's worthy of a legal opinion. I mean, the dog bylaw's been worked on. It's I mean, if it comes back in January and we get the clarification, so what? Let's proceed rather than pass something that may or may not be accurate. So I think we should defer it, get a legal opinion.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, I could make one last comment, please.
Yes, go ahead, Paul.
Well, in the approximately 16 years that I've had the privilege of working with you, gentlemen, with the municipality in itself, I've never laid a charge under any bylaw on Crown land in that time.
Well, thank you, but you did tell us that you could not enforce the parking restriction at Gooseneck Landing, did you not?
Yes. Public Lands Act now, right? That's under the Public Lands Act.
Well, all Crown land is under the Public Lands Act.
Yeah, you and I had a conversation about that. Did you want to get into the conversation that we had over it?
I, I don't think so at this point, but I guess the anyway, I believe that we are going to have a requirement to enforce some municipal bylaws on Crown land, and we therefore need to get this resolved. Okay, so that's really my position. If you feel that you said you've never done it, but you also said you didn't believe that you could do it, and that's, I see not being able to do it as problematic for the municipality. Right.
Well, again, I relate back to Councillor Lamb's comment to get a legal opinion.
Yeah.
I have no problem with that.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Well, so let me just ask council, are you okay with, do you want to defer this? Do you want to pass it and bring it back? Or do you want to, what do you want? What do you want to do?
Mr. Mayor, if I could say something real quick.
Yeah. Go ahead,
I mean,
Councillor.
I don't have a problem if everybody wants to defer it to get a legal opinion. That's more something that staff would handle. That's not a committee thing, right?
Yep.
Because at this point, I think I've added everything I could to this bylaw to try and come up with a decent bylaw as far as my knowledge base when it comes to dogs. And I'm going to take this opportunity to let everybody know I'm removing myself from this committee. It was a great exercise. I think we got a good thing here, but as far as it goes from now forward, when it comes to the regulating of dogs and even the landfill bylaw, I'm going to formally resign from those committees. I think I've put in enough time and work, and I don't think I could add anything more of value to it. But I'm okay if everybody wants to defer it and we wait on a legal answer. That's fine. I would like to make sure that we all get this right so that we have something good that our bylaw officer can enforce, and it will keep our taxpayers happy and safe.
All right. Well, the motion on the floor is to approve it as it is. And I guess, I don't know, Madam CAO, perhaps I'll get you to call the roll, please, if you don't mind.
Oh, hold on, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
You know, I feel really uncomfortable. This thing could get defeated, you know, or Pat. I mean, I don't know why we're fussing. We spent far too long on this, on you know, even tonight. Like what's gonna occur? The earth isn't gonna fall apart in the next month if we just get a legal opinion. But if we go and vote on this thing, I can't vote knowing or not knowing whether we can enforce this on Crown land. So let's just clarify it. If we vote and turn it down, what the heck are we gonna do? You don't feel comfortable with it. I don't feel comfortable with it. Like why are we voting on it? But you know. Well,
all right. I'm sorry. I'm in a bit of a procedural quandary, as you can tell. I would prefer if council has agreed that we should get a legal opinion, then I think we should defer it. Can I, and with every respect to the hard work that the committee did and Councillor Woods, this is not to create further work for you, but just to get some clarification that we can come back to council and say we know for sure what's going on. So if that's the wish of council, then we can defer it. But I need to get a majority opinion. It sounds like there's some people who say, look, just approve it the way it is and worry about it later. And some people are saying,
Mr. Mayor, under the circumstances, I will now move to defer.
I was just going to say that, Mr. Mayor, as the council representative on that committee and the mover of the first one there, I have not a problem saying that we should defer this.
All right, so move to defer, Councillor McEwen. And seconded by Councillor Woods. Let me test the question. Is there anyone opposed to deferring for a legal opinion? Okay, well then that motion is carried. It's deferred. Sorry. Thank you very much. And again, thank you to the folks who did work hard on this. I was aware that it was a lot of work. Item 12.5. Is a bylaw to approve an updated emergency management plan. Sorry. So I need a mover and seconder that bylaw number 56-2021 being a bylaw to adopt an updated emergency plan for the municipality of Whitestone and to repeal bylaw laws numbered 03-2001, 58-2004, 73-2006, 02-2008, 63-2008, and 74-2009 be read a first and second time this 13th day of December 2021, and further read a third time, passed and properly signed and sealed this 13th day of December 21st and numbered bylaw number 56-2021. Could I get a mover and seconder for that?
I'll move it.
Please.
Councillor Lamb.
Councillor Lamb, thank you. Who will second?
I'll second, Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Councillor Woods. So, just before we started into this item, our CEMC, Kathy Whitman, joined us, and she is now here and perhaps answer questions she has. But before we do that, I'll ask if either our CAO clerk or Kathy want to say anything by way of introduction to this particular amendment.
I'll let Kathy Whitman speak. She's our CEMC and she led the team on the update of this bylaw. So I'll turn it over to Kathy.
Kathy, if you wouldn't mind, perhaps you might just explain to the folks what there is, because there is a requirement for us to do this. Perhaps you could mention that.
Yeah, I can explain that. So every year, it's my job to report to EMO on our progress throughout the year on emergency plans, and we're required to meet a certain criteria in that our emergency operations group and our committees are supposed to do exercises, which we've done this year. We did a joint one this year with Perry Sound and other municipalities in the district. And our committee that we have met and went over the plan and made a few changes and have decided that next year we're going to implement the IMS system, which is mentioned in our plan, which I mean a little bit of changes for the duties of the people involved, and those titles will change a little bit, but overall it will remain the same. And I report all this back to EMO and they say, yes, you're in compliance with what our standard is, or no, you're not. And we've always been in compliance. So this year should be no different, other than we have a new field officer this year. So nobody's quite sure exactly what to expect from her yet. But once we get it sent in, we'll know quickly whether or not we are compliant or not. Does anybody have any questions?
Okay, thank you. Questions from council or comments? All right.
So Mary, just a comment. Thanks, Kathy, for your work. It's a very comprehensive report. It's a lot of work. Appreciate it.
Welcome.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anything else? Is
For me,
there,
no.
is there anyone opposed to passing this bylaw? I guess I should ask him, Madam Clerk, do you, should I be asking you to call the roll on these, do you think? I mean, are they,
Not necessarily.
do you like the record better if they're, I mean, they sound like they're unanimous. If I thought there was some controversy, I would probably ask for the roll call, but you're okay with just the no objection?
That I am indeed.
All right, thank you. It's a little quicker. Any objection to this bylaw? Anyone who does not want to pass it? Okay, it's passed. Thank you very much. I'll keep going because we've got a few more here. 12.6 is a bylaw to authorize the sale of land to the Blacks. Mover and seconder for this, that bylaw number 57-2021 being a bylaw to authorize the sale of land to Robert and Candace Black as the property identified as assessment roll number 4939010005030001 for a total amount of $120,000 plus HST be read a first and second time this 13th day of December 2021 and further read a third time passed and properly signed and sealed this 13th day of December 2021 and numbered bylaw number 57, 2021. Who would like to move that?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb, seconded by,
I'll second Councillor Woods.
thank you, Councillor Woods. Is there any discussion on this particular one? We have, as you know, come up with this before. We did. It's a sale of public lands. Okay, if there are no comments, is there anyone opposed to this motion? Okay, I will declare it carried. Thank you. And last bylaw is number 58-2021. Being a bylaw to appoint an interim treasurer and tax collector and to repeal bylaw 23-2018. Be read a first and second time this 13th day of December 2021. And further read a third time passed and properly signed and sealed this 13th day of December 2021 and numbered bylaw number 58-2021. The details are in your package. Can I get a mover and seconder, please?
I'll move, Councillor McEwen.
Thank you, Councillor McEwen, seconded by
I'll second.
Councillor Gorham Matthews. Any discussion? Any opposition to the motion? Okay, thank you. That's carried. Staff reports. Renovations to Whitestone Municipal Office. Here's the suggested motion that the council of the, sorry, there's just a small typo here, that the council of the municipality of Whitestone does hereby receive report admin-2021-16, which is on tender 2021-10 renovations to Whitestone Municipal Office, 21 Church Street, Dunchurch. And that the council of the municipality of Whitestone does hereby award tender 2021-10 to Morgan Construction, Perry Sound in the amount of $132,000 plus HST, and that the council of the municipality of Whitestone does hereby provide pre-budget approval for the above referenced project. Could I get a mover and seconder, please?
I'll move.
Thank you, Councillor Gar Matthews, seconded by
I'll second Councillor McEwen.
Councillor McEwen. Thank you. Discussion.
Well, I'll go.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, I'm not going to bore my council colleagues with, I didn't vote for this to go to tender, so I'm certainly not going to vote to proceed. I've espoused my opinion on it and the reasoning, surrounding such things as working from home and such things as the using other municipal buildings, like the library and community center for meetings. I don't think this is the right time to be putting this type of renovation in. I think that it's an interim step. I think it's an expensive interim step. I think we could have done things at the front to protect people, et cetera, in COVID, and do a few things, remove a wall or so, maybe spent 50 grand or something in that area until we came up with a more finalized plan. I don't like the perception in my mind. Hopefully it'll come out different, that we, kind of enclose the porch and as I see it, have a, I call it a little wicket that, kind of opens and closes and, greets the taxpayer that way. Maybe I've got it wrong, but I don't know. I just think it sends out the message of, we're not open for business. And indeed we're not. We're doing business, but people haven't been in that office for 2 years. We're in the midst of COVID. We're in the midst of Omicron variant coming out. I think, it's bad times on the horizon. And I see this as and spending, 172,000 as a part need and part want. And so I will not be supporting it. I could go on and on with other reasoning. I think we have to be one of the very, very few places in North America that's expanding and doing things in their office in the midst of a pandemic. And I find a hard time to support it. As I say, if it were more minor than this, I would support it. And I think we'll be back to the trough within a year or two to look at a more extensive type of situation. So anyway, that's all I have to say. So I won't be voting for it, but I do appreciate that people, have a different viewpoint on it, and I appreciate that. So thank you.
Okay, thanks. Others who wish to speak to this?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, since I'm second it, this has been thoroughly debated and discussed and went around through the community in big time, considerably back in 2021. And we do have $50,000 in the budget from 2021 to support this project based on our suggestions, recommendations from council at large at the time. Employees are working under adverse conditions as far as I'm concerned from a space point of view. It's just not a decent setup in there. So respecting our employees for one thing, and trying to make a more viable working relationship and environment out of it, including the safety aspect of where they work. I still support this project. It's unfortunate we didn't go maybe on a larger scale, but pressure was, and maybe I guess the timing wasn't good to do it at the time a few months back. But hopefully this will put us in better stead moving forward.
Okay, thank you. There are other comments. Councillor Gorham Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so I agree with Councillor Lamb. You know, this isn't going to be the end of it. Obviously, this is a minor renovation when what we need is a major renovation. We've asked our staff what they need in terms of space and a workable space. And they've told us, and it wasn't palpable to council, and it was expensive given COVID and the cost of materials at the time. So we've had compromised and are creating a space that will meet the needs of staff and ratepayers for now. But I think in the meantime, you know, in future years, we do need to start a reserve or something, because this isn't going to go away. We're still, you know, the conditions that we're changing now will help some, but we still have other issues that need to be met, in my opinion. So, you know, I do support this expansion now, but I do believe we need further in the future.
Okay, thank you. Is there another comment? Did you wish to
Mr.
weigh
Mayor,
in,
if I could.
Councillor Woods? Thank you.
Yeah, I was just about to, Mr. Mayor. Thanks very much. I know this was a very big topic of discussion in the community. We did have quite a few meetings. You know, we put aside, it was $50,000 in the budget as a number to work with. And then it got voted in favor of taking it to tender, and they were coming out to the price of $170,000. It is an interim solution. I think it's a costly interim solution personally. We definitely needed to do a little bit of work to help keep, you know, the staff inside the office safe, security a little bit tighter in there, so people just couldn't come in and do what they wanted as they wanted, kind of idea. I was a little surprised that, I mean, we have this report. I'm a little surprised that we haven't had like another concept drawing to at least show people what it might look like for, you know, the approach when you walk into this newly renovated space, and then what the inside might look like. I thought something like that could have came from the architect, might have helped people out. Maybe it wouldn't. And I mean, 170,000, and we originally it was I think a $700 and something thousand thing that was getting tossed around the table in the very beginning. So yeah, I don't know. I didn't vote in favor of this before. I'm not going to be voting in favor of it today. The feeling that I'm getting is everybody's looking more towards a major expansion at some point, whether it be next year or the year after. I don't know. I think we could have sharpened our pencils a little bit on what we're getting for the price that we're spending, to be honest with you. I did stop in at the office today, and normally I knock on the window, and I believe her name's Lori. Very nice lady we have working at the front desk. She comes out and unlocks the door for me, and she came and she waved me in. And I didn't realize that the door was unlocked because it's always been locked for months and months, as long as I can remember now. But the door was wide open, and then they just locked the door to the office. So I wanted to put that out there when we're talking about security in the office. But I mean, it is what it is. The work will get done. Hopefully, you know, fit and finish is top shelf for the money that we're putting out for the amount of work that we're getting done. I'd be interested to take a look when it's all said and done.
Okay, well, thank you. Are there any other comments? Well, hearing none, I guess I will ask our clerk to call the roll, please, for this one.
Is she muted?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, she's back now.
I'm
Yes.
back, yeah. Councillor Gore Matthews,
Yes.
Counselor Lamb,
No.
Counselor McEwen,
Yes.
Counselor Woods,
No.
Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion is carried.
Okay, thank you. So now we have report 13.2, which is a write-off of tax arrears. Could I ask for a mover and seconder, please, that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone hereby receives report FIN-2021-10 entitled Write-off of Tax Arrears, and that council approve the write-off of tax arrears in the amount of $4,961.38. Is there a mover and seconder, please?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Seconder?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor McEwen. Discussion.
Yeah, just a couple comments. I guess we'll approve this, and I won't vote against it, but generally speaking, when you're buying land or buildings or whatever, it's sort of buyer beware, and you assume, the liability of the property. I know, for instance, in my condo here in Burlington, if someone buys a building or buys a unit and there's something, goes wrong with it, and it was somewhere from two owners ago, they're responsible, right? And so anyway, it's just a comment. I guess that this has got convoluted and lots of people making lots of errors, and so I guess we need to write it off. But I sure wouldn't want this to become any kind of practice. Someone should be held accountable, but I will vote for this. So thank you.
Thanks. Are there other comments or questions about this item? I don't hear any. Is there any opposition to the motion then? And again, I don't hear any, so that motion is approved. Item 14, the Aquatic Environment Report prepared by Georgian Bay Biosphere covering Wawashkish and Whitestone Lakes. Could I get a mover and seconder that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone hereby receives the report, Aquatic Environment Report, Wawashkish Lake and Whitestone Lake, prepared by Georgian Bay Biosphere for information? Moved by
I'll make the
move,
motion.
Councillor
Gorham
Woods.
Matthews. Sorry, did I see Councillor Gorham Matthews? Did I see you?
Yeah, or you can do Counselor Woods. It doesn't matter.
Oh, all right. Well, I heard Councillor Woods. I thought I saw you trying to speak, but I couldn't tell. Are you seconding?
Sure.
All right, thank you. So it's moved and seconded, and it's open for discussion. Did you have any, either of the members of the Environment Stewardship Committee, did you have any comments you wanted to make on it to introduce it or anything? Councillor
Sure,
Gorham
I will.
Matthews.
Yeah, I'll just say that really the meat and potatoes of this report won't come out until year 3. This is a 3-year study. They need to test the water for 3 years before you get the final analysis on your lake. So this is the second year for Whitestone Lake and the first year for Washcash. So, you know, they've made some good recommendations of activities that as a committee we can continue to do, and education in the community and on the lakes. But really, in terms of determining whether the lake is healthy or not with the forensic testing, won't be determined until next year for Whitestone. And I'll just add, as a committee, we were hoping to add another lake next year. The plan was always to get up to having 3 lakes on the go, and so that as one lake finishes, another can begin. So we're in our budget, we've put in that we'll support 3 lakes for next year. And then from then on out, we'll stick with 3 until we tested all the ones that we're interested in getting data on.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wish to comment on this report? Or
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just briefly, as Beth mentioned, period, information in this little report. It's more than anything, I guess, to do with the fish communities in both Wawashkash and Whitestone Lake, and it talks to the stocking, I guess, for one thing, when stocking occurred, and it hasn't been done actively for a very long time in these lakes, so it's interesting. But the water chemistry is looked at in the report somewhat. It has been for a long time by people like Dennis Morrison and then some people in Wawashkash Lake. So hopefully, as time goes on, this will be put together in more comprehensive reports collectively over the next few years. But it's very good information. Thank you.
yes, thanks. There's certainly some interesting reading there. So is there anything else on this one? We're just receiving the report from now. There are no direct action items. Anyone opposed to receiving the report? I'm sorry, I just ticked off the wrong paper, but that's okay. Which brings us to correspondence. We're in the final stretch here. So I need a mover and seconder for the following. Whereas the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone has received the correspondence items listed on page 5 of the December 13th council agenda. Now therefore be it resolved that council received the correspondence items for information with the following extracted for further discussion / action. So I'll get a mover and seconder, and we'll talk about which ones we want to extract, if any. It's quite a
I'll
long
move it,
list.
Councillor Lamb.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb. Seconded by,
I'll second Councillor Woods.
thank you, Councillor Woods. Are there any of those items? I'll go back and see if I can find the correspondence list here, but it's as I recall, there were a lot of them. There's A to Y, so that's 25 items. Any particular ones you would like to talk about? All right, is that none?
Perfect.
Okay, hearing none, I will say, I'll let the note say none. And again, I should ask, is anyone, everyone's in favor of just receiving these items then? No opposition? All right, thank you. That means there are none. Councillor items.
Yep, I have
Mr.
one.
Mayor?
Oh,
Okay,
ahead,
well,
Brian.
so I heard
Go ahead,
Councillor
Brian.
Lamb first, so we'll let him.
No, that's okay. Let Brian go first. That's fine.
All right,
Okay, yeah, I can go first. Thanks,
ahead.
Councillor Lamb. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just two quick ones. It would have been a few weeks ago, I guess. Councillor Lamb and I had the opportunity to go through the library and do a final walkthrough with David Creaser and our architect and the builder that did the work for us there at the library. And it was actually Councillor Lamb pointed it out about the light fixtures in the area where the desks would be for the library workers and whatnot. And he said, you know, where's the covers for those lights? And I guess they're old lights and they can't find covers for them anymore. And some of them were falling out. So Eva had explained to us that she took some of them out. And she actually had applied for a grant for the energy grant and got them updated to LED lighting. I don't know, maybe we could think about it budget time, maybe get them some new light fixtures that look a little bit nicer for the library. I mean, we've done a lot of work over there. And I think some new light fixtures, I don't think it would be a huge cost to buy those light fixtures. But it would definitely top off all of the renovations work that we did over there. And I think the library employees and anybody that uses the library would probably appreciate it. So it's just that one. Another one, I've had a few people ask me about the water tap again, and I know we've talked about it before. We shut it down for the winter time. There are still people that are looking for, you know, water supply in the winter months. And I was sitting thinking to myself, we could probably install one easy enough and cheap enough in the Dun Dome, the bathrooms there. And I was thinking specifically about the handicap accessible washroom. There's a lot of room in there. And when you first open the door, straight back on the right-hand side of the room would be the sink, and the water supply would be coming out of the wall there. And it could be something as simple as, you know, putting a T-joint in on the supply line there, running a short pipe off to a hose bib or a push valve for a water supply. That way it would be heated and we could still supply water over the winter months, because it couldn't freeze and cause any issues like it would at the one attached to the community center. I don't know 100% for sure if we have potable water in there, but it just an idea, maybe something to look at. A job like that shouldn't cost very much money at all, to be honest with you. Other than that, that's just my two items. So thanks very much.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if our director of works is not on the call. I don't know if our CAO wants to comment on any of those things.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will, I'll look into the light fixture item for budget. I'm sure that if you've spoken to Eva, she will add it to her budget items. And if she doesn't, I'll remind her. So that's a good idea. And I will speak to David Creaser about the water tap idea.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I believe that Councillor Lamb was next.
Yeah, thank you. I want to thank Councillor Woods for bringing up the library. I'm the library representative, and I did bring those lights up so that they will be much better if we get them. So if our CAO could remind Eva, I'll try to too, but I may forget some. Anyway, I just have a quick one. I had a call this afternoon, and well, let me go back. The order of Whitestone was on Saturday, and unfortunately, when the date came out, I had a commitment here in Burlington that I could not get out of, and so unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend. But I just wanted to say that they're very, very the houses. They're very, very deserving people. And I want to thank them for all their efforts in the community. And again, I apologize for not being able to be there. I got a call this afternoon from someone that and I had seen it, but I didn't think that much of it at the time. But we've posted pictures of the event, and there's a picture of, I don't know, 6 or 8 people, I think, all the counselors that were there in the houses, etc. And everyone's smiling nicely, practically hand in hand, but are very, very close, not a mask on at all, nothing. And I just, when they called me, I said, well, I guess that's a good point. And I don't know that it's mandatory, but it doesn't send out a really great message given the current state of COVID. I personally got thinking about it afterwards. I'm scared skinny about this Omicron variant. I think we're headed for dark times. I hope I'm wrong. Both my university grandkids were called home from university today, one out in Halifax and one at Queens. No more in-person exams. Like, this thing is really big, and I hopefully the hospitalizations don't follow the number of cases that I fear that we're going to have. So anyway, I pass the information on. I'm not trying to put, poo-poo the event or anything like that. I just wonder whether that's the right thing to put up in COVID is a picture like that, or pictures like that. So, and that's coming from a taxpayer. So thank you. And again, that's just a comment. People don't have to answer it, but I said I would bring it up. So thank you.
Now, I guess all the, since I was there, I'll respond and say all of the participants in the photo agreed that they were comfortable having it taken that way. And you do get a better picture, but I guess that's yeah. It's not, I agree with you that it's the messaging seems to be changing back to people to saying to people, well, you've got to be fairly comfortable about the groups of people that are normally together mixing each other up, so they're mixing up with others. So anyway, it was a nice event, and we did recognize that we did present the Order of Whitestone to Andy and Rehauser. I was going to mention that if Councillor Lamb hadn't mentioned it. So anyway, are there any other councillor items?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just a comment.
Yes.
It's really pleasing to read and see and hear about the activities that are actually going on collaboratively and collectively in the library, to some of the ag stuff that's happening within the library, the agricultural or the historical society. They're putting on some informations in there, and certainly the library news puts out a lot of information, as does the web and the rec committee. There's a lot of activity going on behind the scenes in the community. I just hope we can keep it going some way, some safe way. I know it's going to get seemingly, as Councilor Lamb alluded to there, this COVID thing just isn't going away. If anything, it's getting scarier all the time here, or again. So anyway, just very appreciative of all the folks that put in their effort in those different groups. And it's kind of centered around the library to a greater extent. So tip my hat to everybody there. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Anything else? If not, that brings us to questions from the public. And I'm sorry, did I miss?
That's okay.
I missed Councillor Gorham Matthews. Sorry, Beth. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention a couple things that are happening in the community. So the Lions Club and the fire department have teamed up again this year to run the food and toy drive. So you can still donate food and unwrapped toys to either the Duck Rock or the fire hall up until Friday. And then we will be doing the deliveries on the 21st for the local families. And I just wanted to mention a couple successful events that happened over the weekend for children. We had the couldn't have breakfast with Santa, but we had pictures with Santa on Saturday, and we had 25 families go through and get their cute little kids picture taken. So that was a really great event. You know, it drew families not just from Whitestone, but from other communities came to get to see Santa as well. So, and then on Sunday, there's an event run as well. That was the Secret Santa Shoppers, where children went into the community center and they're able to shop for their family members. They had 23 children go through and they're able to shop and pick out gifts for their siblings and parents and grandparents. And it was a very positive event as well that was run in the community. So I just wanted to thank our volunteers for running those and thank our community for their donations and support as always to our food drive.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
Sorry, I just have one thing. I just wanted to thank Beth for all the work she does in the community. And I just, I mean, it's unreal and you do an awesome job. But I just had a question. I know that you were down to 4, I thought, members of the Lions Club, and you had an information session. And I know you improved the number of people involved. So how many members of the Lions are there now?
I think we're at 7 now.
Okay.
We were at 4. We added 3 members through the membership drive. They're very enthusiastic members, and we're hopeful that they like sorting bottles. That's the test for this summer, but we are cautiously optimistic that we will continue for 2022 with the Lions Club.
Don't forget that the library is available if you need any assistance with respect to bottles and things like that.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Questions from the public. I believe we still have Mr. Nash with us. If he hasn't fallen asleep waiting for this item,
Yeah, hello, Mr. Mayor.
he's there.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead, Scott.
All right. I did have one really, really quick question, actually, but I don't know if it's an important question now because I think the dog bylaw had been postponed. But the question was, I don't know if anybody wants to open it up, but under 6.7, it spoke about an animal that is being utilized for law enforcement purposes, sporting purposes, i.e. hunting, farming, herding purposes, shall be allowed to be off leash provided that they are actively engaged in their qualified activities. And I guess my question to that would be, what about a service animal for somebody with PTSD, for somebody with autism, for a blind person? I know a lot of the time those animals are on leashes, but not all the other time, unless I missed it in here. I think it should be something, I don't know if any of the counselors would like to speak to that now, or something that maybe can be looked at when this is brought back, just to make sure that the Accessibilities Act isn't being hindered here and service animals are allowed to do what they need to do. That's all. Thank you.
Does anybody have an answer to that?
Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Go ahead, Councillor Woods.
I believe that just got missed because I know during the the committee meetings, we actually did talk about that. So maybe that was just a clerical error, but good catch. Thanks very much, Mr. Nash.
Okay, we will put that on the list to follow up on. All right then, if there is nothing else, we will proceed with our confirmatory bylaw. Can I get a mover and seconder, please?
I'll move it, Counselor Lamb.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb. Seconded by,
Second, Councilor McEwen.
Councillor McEwen. Thank you. I'm assuming there is no opposition to passing that one. And finally, who would like to move adjournment?
I'll move, Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Councillor Woods. Seconded by,
I'll second.
oh, all right, Councillor Gorham Matthews. And it is 9:53 p.m. Be it resolved that this meeting be adjourned at 9:53 p.m. until the next scheduled regular council meeting of Monday, January 18th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. or at the call of the chair. So we have a good Christmas break, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank everybody for your participation this evening, and wish you all the best of the holiday season. Perhaps we'll see some of you between now and the 18th, but enjoy your break
Yeah, happy
and
holidays.
stay
everyone.
safe.
Yeah, happy holidays, everyone.
Christmas.
Take care. Merry Christmas.